welcome to Puerto Rico.
Thank you so much, Brock, for having me. It's a real blessing and honor to be here with you. Thank you.
Yeah, well, I'm super excited to get into this. You've been in the gold business, as long as anyone on the digital side that I'm aware of, and you're bridging that gap between where digital gold meets blockchain, liberty, and we happen to be here in Puerto Rico. So you've been to Puerto Rico before. This isn't your first time down here. You're one of the few that is very familiar. How did you end up in Puerto Rico?
Thank you. So I learned about it, and your lead really kind of helped incentivize us to be here. And Cynthia and I, my wife and co-founder, president of Anthem Gold, we moved here about a year and a half ago, and just love it and just really, really enjoy it. We're talking about just coming back. We actually are Act 2022, and so it's really a timing. And so, gold is really something ingrained in us that is wealth, and really wealth is freedom, right? So you have wealth, it gives you time, and time is freedom. So really what we want to do is help to provide people with freedom of wealth movement, and that's really what we're about with Anthem Gold. So we're really, really honored. We're first to market in the US with a gold stablecoin that's fully backed. We're on video, unlike Fort Knox or the Federal Reserve or HSBC, so that's kind of special too. So we're really excited to be able to present with really, you're a pioneer and legend, and you created the first stablecoin, obviously, with Tether. So I'm honored to be here with you.
Wow, mutual respect and mutual privilege, mutual honor. Well, thank you first of all for being down here in Puerto Rico.
Yeah, no, it's my
Puerto Rico
honor.
needs as many great people that are building things down here as they can get, because that leads to obviously GDP impact, but hopefully jobs and all sorts of other things. So really glad to see that you're both down here, and look forward to continuing to watch the work that you do. So let's talk about the heart of the matter, gold.
Beautiful.
So how did you end up in the gold business? Because you have a long history with digital gold.
Yeah, thank you for asking about that. So I'm really lucky. I'm adopted. I'm really blessed. I won the lottery at a very early age, at 3 days old, and I was adopted from beautiful, loving parents, Jim and Jackie Blanchard. They were really cool. They were history teachers in New Orleans at public school, and had a real passion for history. And when the U.S. Was off the gold standard, basically, in 1971, my parents became very, very staunch kind of advocates. And so my dad was in a near fatal car accident at the age of 18, paraplegic. He was in an iron lung. I think he died and kind of came back, and that's kind of give us the future a little bit. And so he really foresaw some really neat things. And basically my parents lobbied in Washington, D.C. with gold bars that they smuggled from Canada, because it was illegal at the time to own gold. Most people don't know this, that from 1933 through 1974, it was illegal for U.S. citizens to own a bar of gold or a coin. And so this ridiculousness and absurdity, my dad paraded around Washington, D.C. with my mom and held press conferences and threatened the U.S. government to arrest him, and held a banner over President Nixon's re-inauguration in 1972-3 that said legalize gold. And in 1974, January 1st, 1975, President Ford ended up legalizing and rescinding the executive order that FDR had in place. And from that point, in 14 years, my parents built the largest gold bullion business in the world, Blanchard and Company. Yeah, and that was a lot of legacy that they instilled, and did a lot of revolutionary things in gold, and helping to provide freedom. And so that's the legacy that I carry. My dad passed away 20 years ago. I've been in digital gold myself for 17 years, an investment that he was in gold money. I was really lucky that the founders let me be a part of that opportunity. And the company went public 4 years ago at Toronto Stock Exchange, and they're now $2 billion in gold. So it was a 10,000x from 200,000 in gold when I started there in September of 2002. So that was a real honor and blessing. And I'm just, really grateful to kind of be part of this new gold, which is really Bitcoin and all these digital currencies that we're all part of now, because gold is the anchor of the commercial marketplace of the physical world, right, that run through governments. And Bitcoin is really, I think, the anchor and the digital gold, so to speak, of the digital marketplaces that we're now, you again created and pioneered, EOS and blockchain capital, first STO, and it's pretty awesome. So, Jacob Farber was with you at Mastercoin, and now Omni, I guess we call it, is now with one of our attorneys for a couple years now. So thank you very much. We're really grateful. You've helped us in so many ways. So I'm just, again, this is my opportunity to thank you as well. So,
I appreciate it, but it's a two-way street. It does take teamwork to make this collective dream work.
Yeah.
It takes all of us. It's back to who is Satoshi? I always like to say, we are all Satoshi. Your family has been on the front line for nearly 100, helping change the status of gold for now what's been a 100-year process. But let's go back to FDR in 1933. I'm a history buff, and I think that his story, better yet, her story, is important. And so I'd love to just kind of walk us through what was happening in the United States at the time, why you think that happened, and ultimately, what your parents did drove for the legalization of us as Americans to be able to own gold again. What was the thing that kind of triggered that change? What permitted that? For those of us that like to know the story.
It's a brilliant question, and I would say, again, we don't really, I think, know history except now with Bitcoin giving us this indisputable record of about almost 10 and a half years now. But the facade history we're given is that Keynesian economics and this idea that the government could control the money and that therefore they can control the economy. That's kind of the stated. My personal opinion is that there was kind of another kind of theory that was trying to propose of all monies running through one centralized marketplace, being the U.S. in this case. And it's been an evolution of central banks and currencies, and I think it's just an evolution of trade. I mean, it's just been a reality that in order for we as individuals and human beings to trade with one another, we've had to create these forced violent marketplaces in order to do so. And the reason is that we have no way from preventing others from colluding against us. So we have to form groups, associations, cults, whatever, religions, nationalities, whatever we want to call them, because we have to out-collude others because of prisoner's dilemma game theory. And what's so brilliant, my favorite thing about public blockchain protocols, any of them, is the ability for machines to arbitrate the rule sets, and that they're voluntary marketplaces. You're forced to abide by the rules if you volunteer yourself to enter a crypto marketplace, but the machines administer all the rules equally. It's all math-based. So that to me is my favorite primary thing in terms of favorite thing about crypto protocols.
So gold money, e-gold, Liberty Dollar, there's a whole sort of phase here as, let's call it the pre-Bitcoin, let's say BC, before coin. Because it's an interesting period that I imagine many people that might watch this are not really familiar with. But it's one of the most important precursors, to what's happened here. I came from the digital currency around gaming background that led me to this, with a little bit of experience in, call it, frequent flyer miles, credit card points, affinity programs, let's call them that, and thinking about sort of community currencies and things that kind of come out of Burning Man. But there's a few other sort of industries that led to essentially this, call it the precursors, that gave us some of the prerequisite skill sets and some of the knowledge base that allowed us to become early adopters. It allowed us to say, oh, this new digital thing that is, isn't tangible has value, because there were other things that in our lives that had given us the perspective to be able to recognize that earlier than most. And I think this is obviously one of the main ones, which is the tokenization of a real world asset like gold.
And it's funny, and obviously, you're a legend in any kind of digitalization of any digital currency. And in 2003, my first year at Cold Money, I remember looking at World of Warcraft, specifically one of the directors was saying that. And the problem was interoperability. The problem was that these hub and spoke, PayPal-like, models for all of us. And, at the time, basically, you couldn't have interoperability from a regulatory standpoint. And what Bitcoin really did was it kind of opened Pandora's box for all of us. And now we can safely do a gold stable coin that's backed and offer it to people in 174 countries, right, out of Texas. And it's kind of incredible. And I'm so grateful, again, it's to all of us, I guess. I don't know what we say. Especially.
It takes all of us.
The
point, though, it's that hub and spoke. I mean, if there was any one individual or even a small group of individuals that played too much of a role, what you were describing is what was known as a closed loop system, and all of the laws around, you can create a digital currency inside of a game like World of Warcraft as long as it can't leave the construct of World of Warcraft. You can create an American Express point as long as it can only be used within the American Express network. The big thing that's changed here is when we went from closed loop systems to open loop systems. And it required this decentralization type of resiliency that really has enabled it. Because if anyone was very successful in doing something that was too disruptive, whether it be around gold or anything else, because we're playing with core essential sort of services, call it the powers that be, want to have control over these types of systems. You needed something resilient like the blockchain to enable all of this. And then you need a lot of people using that technology, to do similar things. I've done a lot of business in Asia growing up, and one of the terms they say is the nail that stands up gets pounded down, or the whale that breaches for air is the one that gets harpooned. And so, we are legion, right? We are many.
That's the beauty of it, right? Is that now we're indisputable, right? We're incorruptible now. That's been the problem. The problem has been you
can't accuse us of if done correctly, everything is transparent.
Yeah. Or you can't. I have here are my 50 law firms that I'm gonna sit on you because I'm worth $50 billion already, and there's no way that you can defeat me because I can change the information any which way because I'm dealing with the database that's create, write, undo, and delete. CRUD is the acronym. And what's cool is that we only really do CR, and it's read, write. We only do two things with our public blockchain ledgers, right? You can't undo. It's like a red line or a track changes that you can't ever change, right? So anyone, and we're all together. So it's like whack-a-mole, emperor's new clothes. It's impossible, right? And it's stronger than the country of Switzerland. It'd be logistically easier to have a total blackout in all of Switzerland right now, who, by the way, their central bank, the National Bank of Switzerland, the Swiss National Bank, they're buying Apple stock, right? So that would probably take down the whole US stock market. It'd be easier to do that than to take down Bitcoin right now from a hashing power standpoint. How amazing is that? That's freedom right there. That's, I think I'm hoping to see the commercialization of these public blockchain protocols that you've been so integral in inventing and fostering and developing, and you have all these adoption, all these blockchains you've been part of. So kudos, thank you. And hopefully we'll now see the next 10 years see the from the retail excitement to commercial, and even more retail excitement, also commercial excitement. And so I'm excited to see what we'll see happen. So
yeah, well, let's dig in real quickly to Anthem Gold.
Sure.
And it's not just Anthem Gold. You also have Amagi Metals. Most of my background is generally unknown because I tend not to talk about what I do. I tend to talk about ideas and talk about philosophy and talk about how to make the world a better place and how to be a better person. How to move from that me mentality to that we mentality. How to move from that scarcity mindset to that sort of abundant mindset. Most of that's what I talk about. But I was in the payment space very early on. One of the first companies I founded in the industry was GoCoin. And so back in the day, BitPay was the first, call it crypto payment processor. Coinbase was the second, and GoCoin was probably the third in terms of anyone with sort of relevance. And because I was very active in the crypto payment space in, call it 2013, the Amagi Metal deal was one that I was very familiar with. I think for a period of time, you may have been the largest merchant processing crypto. You were certainly one of the main merchants. So this is credit you're probably not given very often, but that platform, that business was the biggest driver of, where you could start to, we talk about buying pizza with Bitcoin, but, when people started really using crypto for payment processing or to buy goods or services, it wasn't really until, call it 2013. That you saw the beginning, but it was only a couple of sectors where it was popular, and it was people that were early holders of Bitcoin. What are the things they wanted? They weren't looking to really buy pizzas. That was not a core use case, even though that's the one we focus on. It was people that like Bitcoin are interested in they have concerns about the state of the financial system. They're interested in stores of value, and these are people that are very familiar with digital, and therefore they found something like Bitcoin interesting. But there's definitely a lot of overlap between those that think Bitcoin is an interesting store of value with those that, people that are gold bugs. Bitcoin people are essentially a lot of the same sort of people that would be gold bugs. They just happen to be younger and they live more on the right side of the digital divide.
Yeah, exactly.
But
exactly.
There's a lot of, they're very similar people. People that are into gold are the same sort of people that are into Bitcoin, and you and I are into both. I'm a big gold fan, for the record. I'm a big believer in gold. I believe that gold is more likely to become the primary currency of the world in the short term than Bitcoin is, because Bitcoin is still too young. Bitcoin will take more time. If there was, a major, call it event, were to occur that was going to disrupt, call it the fiat monetary system, hopefully that doesn't happen, because that would create a lot of chaos. And I want to see evolution, right? I want to see the world evolve, but in an orderly way that doesn't create massive chaos and lots of people dying. Because change is inevitable, but hopefully it's done in a thoughtful and orderly way. It's the difference between revolution and evolution, right? Hopefully there's no big R in any of this process. Hopefully it's all capital E and, lowercase e or lowercase r if we, have to find ourselves somewhere in the middle. Gold is, for 5,000 years been the primary form of money.
Yeah,
And fiat money is less
so
than
right.
100 years old.
So true.
It's,
So true.
the entire financial system of the world is new.
Yeah.
Most people don't realize that. They think money's an old system. No, it was gold.
Yeah, I mean,
so I think that's more likely
off the cliff.
if there was a big event to occur. Bitcoin is still too new. The world, I think, would most likely transition back to something more like gold in the short term.
And I think that there's kind of like the neat thing is that because gold anchors all government currency, and there's about $7-8 trillion of gold value above ground, which makes it really unique from a physical commodity. Have you ever noticed how easy it is when you're in other countries, like how easy it is to buy gold relative to almost anything else, real estate then being second? Because those happen to be the two anchors that all government currencies are anchored on. So by default, the paradox is it forces governments to make gold really easy to buy. So now by sunshining all of this on video and in indisputable inventory logs that we anchor into Bitcoin using a least cost routing technique to basically use the power, harness the power of public blockchain protocols and eliminate the thousands of times of cost volatility that we've seen to use these protocols, which is a lot of this is just happening by adoption of volatility, right? Just to use like EOS or Ethereum or Bitcoin, right? Like there are layers are developing, right? And all these layers approach are happening, and all these are like ways or beautiful ways of like harnessing this awesome trust. You know, we've never had historical trust in 6,000 years of recorded history. We're 10 years into historical trust. Like, what is history, right? So to your point, maybe this time it's not going to be a revolution because it's not going to be forced marketplace over and over and over again. War. What is the point of like you trying to kill me or me trying to kill you? It's insane, but that's what we've done all of 6,000 years. It's insane, but why? Because we've been in forced marketplace and we've had to because of prisoner's dilemma game theory. Now we've eliminated prisoner's dilemma game theory. Bitcoin has, right? And we're helping to push for this advocacy, right? Now we have the ability to have an evolution where all of our quality of lives get to go up symmetrically, right? It's not a hierarchical approach where it's a zero-sum game any longer, right? Where we have to collude against others because we can't prevent others from colluding against us. So that's what I'm excited about. How quickly can we commercialize, right? And I think you need to ultimately tokenize assets because even digital commerce ultimately hinges on physical things, right? Transport, transportation, supply chain. So money is freedom, and if people can create for themselves, right? If they can have freedom of wealth movement, then they can protect themselves from tyranny. And if they're able to create for themselves, you know, be able to have the software ultimately lets us replicate human work. And public blockchain software allows us to have indisputable record of the human work, and you know allows this trust to build up, irrespective of who your family was, or who whatever this is, or that is, or my color, or my language, or where, you know, wherever my sperm and you know the eggs happen to be, you know, conceived, or whatever insanity, right? This is all. So anyway, I'm excited to be in this presence with you, and thank you.
I look up to you, and I learn from you.
I look up to you. You're an idol to me. So sorry, I mean,
well,
you really are.
That's mutual respect. It's
Thank
a
you.
wonderful thing.
Thank you.
It's such a
Thank you.
privilege. So if someone wants to go out and get their first piece of Anthem Gold, what is the easiest way if someone wants to just go to get a little bit to experiment? Because I never encourage anyone to do anything other than to invest in themselves, and you do that by becoming informed, and you do that by learning. And then from there, as an informed individual, you make decisions for yourself. So if someone wanted to go down the rabbit hole of learning and to get their first little bit of your stable gold coin, what's the easiest way for someone to go do that today?
So anthemgold.com is our URL. So that's it. You'll see there's a video camera. It's in Texas. We're in a data co-location facility that was built originally as a nuclear bunker. So houstonbunker.com is the URL.
Built for who? Because this is a great story.
So when Mao Zedong communists took over in China, the gold left. And so all the gold left, and basically Shanghai Shek is the guy that left with the gold with his family. And so one of his family members, one of his nephews, Louis Kung, built this crazy-ass 50-acre facility that's outside of Houston, Texas. And we're not really sure why he built it, but it's like an 8-story complex, and it's built to 300 people. He even had 3 jail cells with a conjugal visit and a kitchen in there. So the guy was pretty far out. And so we're really lucky. We've been in that facility for a couple years now and outfitted it for the best. It's Lloyd's insured. So we're really, really excited to provide a gold stable coin, really, you know, provide provide a store of value that is transferable, like a Bitcoin, and right now at least is more stable value relative to essential goods and services. So helping the people in the bottom 20%. We're not really looking to replace the dollar or the euro or anything crazy like that. We're looking at people that are just escaped Venezuela and Colombia, people in Turkey, people places like China, India who are stuck with the capital control, South Africa, places like Nigeria that have really corrupt regimes, places that really need the help. So
we'll have links down below. Please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and as I said, if you are interested in gold and its impact, this is one of the greats, one of the best to watch. Such a privilege to be able to introduce him to all of you here today. Thank you. God bless.
Thank you. Bless you. Thank you.